Welcome to the Geo Venture channel. If you enjoy exploring our planet's wonders, make sure to like and subscribe for more amazing journeys. Imagine a world painted in only two primary colors. The deep, endless blue of the ocean, the varied greens and browns of the land, the brilliant, stark white that once crowned our planet at its poles has vanished completely. This is not a scene from a distant science fiction tale, it is a potential future for our home. Antarctica, Greenland, every mountain glacier have succumbed to a relentless warming climate. They have transformed from solid, majestic giants into unfathomable volumes of water, now swelling the seas. The silence of the Arctic is no longer the peaceful quiet of a frozen wilderness but the eerie silence of absence, a place where life-giving ice once stood. The very air we breathe would feel different, heavier and saturated with moisture. The sun's powerful rays, once reflected back into space by the vast, icy mirrors at the top and bottom of the world, are now absorbed by the dark, open ocean. This absorption creates a feedback loop, a cycle of warming that continuously accelerates itself. The planet's air conditioning system has been switched off, and the Earth is now struggling to cool itself down. This great thaw would unleash a cascade of consequences that ripple across the entire globe. The scale of this transformation is difficult for the human mind to fully grasp. The most immediate and visible consequence of this global melt, with all the ice, global sea levels would surge 70 meters 230 feet. This is not a gentle rise, a deluge of planetary proportions. It would redraw the maps of our world. The places where millions of people live, work, build their lives would simply cease to exist, submerged beneath the waves. The scale of this inundation is almost biblical. Consider the great coastal cities of the world. London, built on the Thames, would be swallowed. In the United States, the entire state of Florida would vanish. New York City would be put to a watery rest. The Statue of Liberty would be a lonely figure, her torch barely breaking the surface. Across the globe, the story is the same. Ultimately, there would be no defense. The ocean would reclaim what it is owed by the laws of physics. The world map that hangs in every classroom would become a historical artifact, a relic of a planet that no longer exists. The very shapes of our continents would be transformed. Europe would look completely different. Denmark would be completely submerged. The Netherlands would be completely submerged. The Black Sea would swell. The Caspian Sea would swell. They would merge into a vast inland ocean, flooding huge areas of Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Australia would gain a massive inland sea. The mighty Amazon River basin would be invaded by the Atlantic Ocean, turning it into a vast brackish bay. This saltwater intrusion would devastate the world's largest rainforest. In North America, the changes would be just as profound. The Atlantic would surge inland, submerging the entire eastern seaboard. The Gulf of Mexico would expand north. On the west coast, San Francisco would become a cluster of islands, forcing a monumental migration of people away from the newly formed coasts toward the continental interior. We would be strangers on our own planet, navigating a world where the old landmarks and boundaries have been washed away forever. The loss of the world's ice would trigger a crisis in the natural world, an extinction event of staggering proportions. The magnificent polar bear, the icon of the Arctic, would have nowhere left to hunt. Its strategy of stalking seals on the sea ice would become impossible in an open ocean. With its hunting grounds gone, the polar bear would face certain extinction, a powerful symbol of a world out of balance. Walruses, which depend on floating ice floes to rest and care for their young between feeding trips, would be left with no refuge. They would be forced to crowd onto the few remaining slivers of land in enormous stressed gatherings, leading to disease and trampling. In the Southern Ocean, the story is much the same for many species of penguin. They rely on stable sea ice for breeding and raising their chicks. Without it, their colonies would collapse. The krill that form the base of the entire Antarctic food web, which flourish in the nutrient-rich waters near the ice edge, would also suffer, causing a domino effect that would starve whales, seals, seabirds. Coral reefs, already struggling in warmer, more acidic waters, would face a final fatal blow. These vibrant underwater cities, which support a quarter of all marine species, would bleach and die, turning into barren, skeletal graveyards. The symphony of life that has played on Earth for millions of years would lose many of its most beautiful and precious notes. The disappearance of the polar ice caps would fundamentally break our planet's climate system. The vast white sheets of ice act as the Earth's refrigerators, reflecting a significant portion of the sun's energy back into space. This phenomenon, known as the albedo effect, is, crucial for maintaining a stable global temperature. When the ice is replaced by dark open ocean, that solar energy is absorbed instead of reflected. This creates a powerful warming cycle. The warmer it gets, the more ice melts, the more heat is absorbed, and the warmer it gets. The planet would be trapped in a state of perpetual fever. This excess heat trapped in the atmosphere and oceans would supercharge our weather systems, making them far more extreme and unpredictable. Hurricanes, typhoons, which draw their energy from warm ocean waters, would become more powerful and more frequent. They would be able to travel further inland and maintain their strength for longer, bringing catastrophic winds and unprecedented rainfall to regions that were once considered safe. At the same time, other parts of the world would be gripped by prolonged and devastating droughts, would leave once fertile agricultural heartlands parched and barren. The great breadbaskets of the world, such as the American Midwest and the plains of Ukraine, we would live at the mercy of a broken climate, forever uncertain of what the next day's sky might bring. Deep within our oceans, there's a powerful silent engine that drives our global climate. It is a massive system of currents known as the thermohaline circulation, or the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt. This current acts like a planetary circulatory system, transporting warm water from the tropics toward the poles, and cold water from the poles back toward the equator. It is driven by differences in water temperature and salinity. Warm, salty water flows north, cools, becomes denser, and sinks to the deep ocean, pulling more warm water behind it. The melting of the Greenland ice sheet would pour an unimaginable volume of cold, fresh water into the North Atlantic, precisely at the point where this great current is most vulnerable. This influx of fresh water would dilute the salty ocean surface, making it less dense. The water would no longer be heavy enough to sink, and the entire conveyor belt could slow down, or even shut down altogether. This is not a distant possibility. Scientists have observed that the current has already slowed by about 15% in recent decades. While the rest of the world would continue to get warmer, the shutdown of this current would plunge northern Europe into a deep and bitter chill. Without the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, a part of the conveyor, being delivered to its shores, United Kingdom, Ireland, Scandinavia. The entire global system of currents is interconnected. Changes in one part of the ocean would have knock-on effects everywhere. The ocean, which has been a source of stability for our climate, would become a source of chaos and unpredictability. The vast ice sheets at our poles are far more than just frozen water. They are essential components of the Earth's life support system, playing several critical roles that keep our planet habitable. Their most famous job is to act as the planet's primary cooling system. Their brilliant white surfaces reflect up to 80% of incoming solar radiation back into space. Without the ice, the darker land and ocean absorb that heat, creating a powerful warming effect that destabilizes the entire climate. The ice is, in essence, the Earth's sunshield. The ice caps are a historical archive of our planet's climate. Trapped within their layers are tiny air bubbles. By drilling deep ice cores and analyzing these bubbles, scientists can read the story of Earth's past climates, past temperatures, carbon dioxide levels, volcanic eruptions. The ice also plays a vital role in stabilizing the very ground beneath it. The colossal weight of the Antarctic and Greenland ice sheets pushes down on the Earth's crust. If this ice were to melt, this tremendous weight would be lifted. The land would slowly begin to rebound upwards. Isostatic rebound. This shifting crust could trigger an increase in seismic activity, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. Finally, the ice caps are the world's largest single reservoir of fresh water. About 70% of all the fresh water on Earth is locked away in the ice. Its release in a massive, uncontrolled melt would cause devastating sea level rise and fundamentally disrupt the planet's water cycle. This frozen guardian has regulated our climate, chronicled our past, stabilized our planet, performs a service for which there is no substitute. Its loss would leave the Earth system dangerously unbalanced. In the face of such monumental environmental change, the human story would become one of survival, retreat, and mass migration. The loss of coastal cities and vast agricultural lands would displace hundreds of millions, perhaps even billions. This would create the largest refugee crisis in human history. These climate refugees would not be fleeing war or persecution, but the fundamental loss of their homelands. They would be forced to move inland, seeking higher ground, fresh water, and land that can still support life, placing an unimaginable strain on the resources of the remaining habitable areas. This mass movement of people would inevitably lead to immense social and political instability. Competition for scarce resources like water, food, and living space would become fierce. Existing tensions between nations and communities would be exacerbated, And new conflicts would likely arise. The global economy would collapse. The loss of major ports, financial centers, and industrial hubs on the coasts would shatter global supply chains. Agriculture would become a desperate gamble against a chaotic climate, leading to food shortages and skyrocketing prices. Yet, even in such a bleak future, the human spirit of resilience and ingenuity would undoubtedly shine through. People would adapt. New technologies would be developed to grow food in controlled environments or to desalinate seawater on a massive scale. But this is a future of struggle and loss, a constant battle for survival on a wounded planet. It is a future we must strive to avoid at all costs. The future of a world without ice is a terrifying prospect, but it is not yet our destiny. It is a warning. The story of our planet is not yet written, and the pen is still in our hands. The choices we make today, and in the coming few years, will determine whether this vision of a drowned world becomes a reality. The immense challenge of climate change can feel overwhelming, but it is not insurmountable. The most crucial step is to transition our global economy away from fossil fuels. Coal, oil, gas, which are the primary drivers of the warming that melts the ice. We must rapidly embrace clean and renewable sources of energy, solar, wind, geothermal power. Governments must lead this transition by setting ambitious targets, investing in green infrastructure. This is the great technological challenge of our time, but we possess the ingenuity and the resources to achieve it if we act with united purpose. As individuals, our actions, when multiplied by millions, create a powerful force for change. We can reduce our own carbon footprint by making conscious choices about how we travel, what we eat, and how much energy we consume. We can reduce our consumption of meat, especially red meat, as a significant portion of greenhouse gases come from agriculture. We can make our homes more energy efficient and support businesses that are committed to sustainability. These actions send a clear signal to industries and governments that we demand a cleaner, safer future. We must see ourselves not as separate from nature but as an integral part of it. The health of the polar ice caps is directly linked to the health of our own communities, and work together to protect our one and only home. There is still hope, but we must act now, with courage, determination, and a shared love for the wondrous living planet that sustains us all.